Holy shit!
Oh my god, we're starting with a curse word.
We
How
put
you
it as
feeling
not
over
suitable for
there?
kids. Can you believe it?
No, I have no idea what I just watched. I really don't. I feel like I'm living in an like alternate universe where the Packers just beat the Cowboys. They're going
To
to
be
the
fair,
divisional
that's not
round?
that surprising. But like the house money, we talked about it right before we went live. There's something so freeing for a young football team to get to play with zero expectations, and they came into that game with a chip on their shoulder. The entire narrative was that the Cowboys were on a 16-game win streak in Dallas, 37 points at home, second seed. This was the year. And all of a sudden, here come the Packers, the lowly seventh seed who weren't supposed to make the playoffs. No seventh seed has ever won. They're the youngest team in playoff history. We're just happy to be here. And all of a sudden, what was the final score, Perry? How many points did they put up in Jerry World?
48.
Good Lord.
48. And it wasn't even, the final score is not an indication of this game. Like the Packers absolutely dominated this game from start to finish. The last two touchdowns that the Cowboys scored, in my mind, were absolute garbage time touchdowns. It was never close. I don't think their win probability ever dipped below 99%. It was a royal ass whooping from start to finish. They never really gave the Cowboys a chance to come back. I mean, once it's 27-7 at halftime, you get to play whatever brand of football you want in the second half. And the Cowboys defense had zero answers for the Packers offense. Zero answers. Jordan Love could throw to whomever he wanted. Aaron Jones was running all over them in their light boxes. I don't know why Dan Quinn didn't just load the box and try to stop Aaron Jones, especially when they're up so much. Like, they're just going to try to run the ball. He's just going to do what he wants to do. Yeah, no answers. And I mean, Matt just was in his bag. I mean, at that point, like tight end leak, just doing whatever he wanted.
And I mean, I think that's what's so fun too, is the entire narrative, right? Andy Herman tweeted it. We joked about it like during the game that the Packers didn't have a wide receiver one and what was going to happen. The Cowboys had CeeDee Lamb and they had Jake Ferguson, who was going to be the person to step up for the Packers. And a number of people did on offense. That's not, not saying it was just one player, but this was the Romeo Doubs game. Christian Watson coming back from injury. We saw Bo Melton have his game a couple weeks ago. Jaden Reed, Malik Heath, they've all been in there. They've all had their fair share. And for Doubs to come out and have the performance that he did, like just some beyond impressive stuff from this Packers offense. You truly could not have scripted it any better. And the fact that, yes, it was an extra point, but there were points kind of left on the board here when the Packers already scored 48 is just bananas.
Yeah, it was just imposing their will. And it is really wild. Like, did Jaden Reed even have a catch in this game?
That's a good point. I don't know.
No. They barely needed Christian Watson, which was kind of nice because it seems like he's still working his way back from this hamstring. I mean, they have a plethora of riches. Bo Melton was used a little bit in the beginning, but they relied heavily on the run game, which is what they should have done. And they relied heavily on the tight ends, which was really fun because obviously these tight ends are both mismatches. And like I said, Dan Quinn and this defense had no answers. And at the beginning, I was thinking, okay, this pass rush has come as advertised, right? Micah Parsons has come as advertised, but kudos to this offensive line. I mean, they were moving guys in the run game, in the pass game, and Jordan Love, unrattled seems to be the term to define him, as we have used it every single week, but unrattled, unfazed against pressure, just unbelievable.
Yeah, Shane, thank you so much for the super chat. We could not have said it any better. Jordan Love is him. He's nasty. He threw 3 touchdowns. And we said, like, you couldn't even tell that it was his first playoff game. And what did we say going into this, right? We jokingly tweeted about it, that it was like, oh, we're just, every experience they get is invaluable. They're going away on the road and it's going to be a hostile environment and good for them, like learning and growth. And this offense comes out there and Jordan Love's like, I am poised, I'm calm, cool, collected, and I'm going to throw for 272 and 3 touchdowns and put up almost a perfect passer rating, except for that one random incompletion at the end there. But absolutely
Ignore
in his
it.
bag.
Ignore it.
You would think he's been starting for like 10 years. Just absolutely phenomenal performance from QB1 and really from the entire offense.
Yeah, absolutely no moment too big. And as Shane points out, that last touchdown was through traffic. He was just absolutely feeling himself. I mean, we saw every arm angle. We saw him step up in the pocket. We saw him flushed out of the pocket. We saw pretty much a showcase of everything that Jordan Love can and likely will do for the Packers moving forward, as he is unquestionably the starter.
Perry, we have a Jay Goldstein in the chat. So
Yeah, hi, Dad.
really exciting that we're bringing everyone together here on the Packs What She Said live to talk about the game. But
my dad agrees with us that Goot should be exec of the year. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate that the coach of the year conversations all ended earlier in the week because I know D'Amico Ryans is very deservedly in that conversation. And Twitter has already pointed out to look too far in the future that the Packers and Texans play in the 2024 season. So really exciting to think about what's next. Texans obviously put up a fantastic performance against my poor husband's Browns. CJ Stroud, lights out. Really cool to see what some of these young guys are doing, kind of the changing of the guard in the NFL here at the quarterback position. So,
yeah, youngest team, and first 7th seed to win a playoff game since they switched the format. So, who would have thunk it when the Packers were 2-5 that we'd be talking them going to the divisional round, playing the 49ers? Let's talk about the defense, because I thought, obviously the fourth quarter, I think they were a little bit in prevent mode. They pulled their starters a little too early, potentially. I think lesson learned. If you want to search for maybe some bad moments from this game, I put in air quotes if you're just listening to this and not watching, because there weren't really many bad moments other than the Anders Carlson missed extra point. In prevent, whatever. But mostly, I mean, you said it before. You go into this game, you think juggernaut offense, have to find a way to stop Dak and CD, have to find a way to stop this high-flying offense. And yet, this game was basically over when it was 48-16. So kudos to this defense. Kudos to the many big plays. We have not seen a lot of turnovers. You and I have talked about it week after week. We're saying we're going into these games, you're thinking you win the turnover battle, you likely win the game. And you look at this, especially this Dallas team, when Dak has a bad game, Dak has a very bad game. And the Achilles heel of Dak is he'll throw you a few. And he's been much better this season, and interceptions is part of the reason why he was in the MVP conversation. But he threw the Packers, I would say 1, maybe 2 if Devondre caught it. But the Jair interception was an amazing play by the Packers all-pro cornerback. And the Packers got 2, and it ultimately led 2 points, and I think was the difference in this game.
Madison, thank you so much for the super chat. But yeah, I mean, I think we talked about it right in the pre-show or in the preview going into the playoffs. So there were a number of keys to success, right? We talked about kind of your best defense being sustained drives on offense. We saw the Packers do that on their opening drive, going 8 minutes and scoring a touchdown. We said Aaron Jones was going to have to get involved, and then he has a 3-touchdown performance behind, as someone points out in the comments, a very good offensive line. Elton Jenkins, Zach Tom, all of them had very good days. Rasheed Walker, it feels like after the kind of the beginning of the season he has really solidified his spot at left tackle. And this isn't a slouch of a defensive unit, right? For the Cowboys, Micah Parsons still got his as we expected him to, but and I think not to go back to the offense, but what makes Jordan Love's performance so spectacular was the fact that even in the face of intense pressure, getting knocked down a couple times, he still kind of hung on to find like the Romeo Doubs throw for 30 some yards. He didn't seem rattled by everything that Dan Quinn was throwing at him. So really impressive from him. And yeah, I think the defense as a whole, all things considered, we joked, right? As we've joked all season, that you live or die by the defense. And we've seen that from not just this Packers team, but for a lot of Packer teams for a lot of years. And this was by all accounts, a very good performance from the Packers defense. So giving them their kudos. It never really felt like they were truly out of it. And I think the defense getting those turnovers was especially significant because we said, again, one of the keys to the game was giving your offense additional cracks at it, which they definitely got.
Yeah. I mean, Darnell Savage looked like Tremont Williams reincarnated in my mind. I saw he jumped that route. I was like, it's Tremont. He has the dreads and everything right now.
Wrong jersey number, but same thing. Same vibes.
Same vibes. Same vibes.
Zach, absolutely agreed. Happiest playoff game in a while. Perri and I, we've talked about this quite a bit, I think, especially in the DMs as the game was going on. But for a team that had very little expectations, and I think our prediction going into the season was still that this Packers team would finish 10-7. Playoff aspirations were always the case. We thought that it was possible. But the quote unquote house money thing, it held. It was a young team. They were just happy to be there. And they showed why
they were just happy to be there, though.
They were really happy to be at 18.
I think this performance was like, hey, don't overlook us. I know that.
I mean, it was AJ Dillon that said that, right? We're not just happy to be here. We can actually win games.
People were talking all week. I mean, us included. This is gravy, and they only went 9-8, and they didn't even win the division. And look at the start of their season. But you compare the first half of the season to the second half of the season, they're kind of two completely different teams. And when it comes to playoffs, getting hot at the right time is really all that matters. And we said it this past week. Everyone going into this now is 0-0. Dallas won 12 games. Doesn't matter. They're going home now. So not that we, yes, Justin, we need donuts. Thank you for the super chat. That's Maggie's friend, for anyone wondering why we're laughing. I don't know. I definitely felt that way, but seeing them come out and make a statement like that, I think this was a little bit this young team saying, we got overlooked and we don't really appreciate that very much.
Yeah.
Heard.
Right. Absolutely felt. Understanding. But yeah, I mean, I think there was something to be said. I think we kind of alluded to it maybe a little bit in the pregame show, but it's like you don't know what you don't know, right? And if you go in to this atmosphere not knowing what it's like and what the expectations are, there's something to be said about playing a little bit more loosely. And we talked about the expectations for the Dallas team, right? Putting up 37 points, Mike McCarthy's job security. There were a lot of question marks, and the expectations were, as the number 2 seed, you need to win this game and you need to win it handedly at home. And that's something that the Packers have seen for how many seasons with Aaron Rodgers and with Brett Favre. We talked about it for weeks that when was the last time the Packers were true underdogs? And you could argue yes, some of their playoff games on the road, but you have Aaron Rodgers, you have these players that kind of put you over the hump. You can't really say that an Aaron Rodgers-led football team is an underdog. So to go into a game as what you would consider a true underdog, the moment just didn't feel too big for them. And I think that's what's so exciting is because we talked about 2023 being a foundational building piece for 2024. And it's at this point, you're building off of that with pieces in the draft, but they're so far ahead of, I think, the curve that we expected them to be at going into the following season. So now to then be in the divisional round and you get to go on the road and play with quote unquote even more house money at this point and see what happens in San Fran, which arguably has not been a very friendly place for the Packers recently to play.
I'm glad you brought that up because I saw Zach Cruz tweet can this baby Packers team go and exercise some demons? And part of me is I don't know if this team has any demons. Did those demons lie with Aaron Rodgers departing? It just feels like this team has turned a page. It's just
I think the demons play at MetLife now. I think the demons are out east.
This is a little bit of this is such a breath of fresh air team. So I don't know. I mean, maybe Matt LaFleur has some demons out in San Francisco. Needs to
probably Preston,
against his friend. But I don't know, man. Let's talk about Matt LaFleur because what a game plan. I mean, I always feel when the Packers open up a game, I'm I know how this game is going to go based on the first drive. If Matt LaFleur's scripted plays look good, if they are surgical down the field, I'm okay, I think this game is going to go well. If they go 3 and out, I'm this is going to be a tough one. And his first drive was beautiful. It was exactly like you and I said. We're like, lots of Aaron Jones, drain the clock, getting 7, not settling for 3. It obviously ended up not mattering. We didn't know that at the time. But Matt LaFleur absolutely outcoached Dan Quinn, who is currently, I mean, one of the top like head coaching candidates for a number of the openings around the league. He was quote unquote on the hot seat for part of this season, not from you and me, but it was part of the narrative. How are we feeling about the head coach right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think the hot seat.
I only bring that up.
No, I know. Is a little hyperbolic, I think, from the people that were actually calling for his job. But no, I mean, even the talking heads, the national media has talked about how fantastic he's done. And this would be impressive with an Aaron Rodgers-led football team. Like, winning a playoff game on the road is never easy, but not to keep going back to the fact that you're the youngest team in the league and you have 74 combined games of playoff experience going into this. Like, all of your vets on the offensive side of the ball were largely gone, and David Bakhtiari is of course still there, but hasn't played this season. Mercedes Lewis, like some of these guys that maybe didn't necessarily have a huge on-field impact but had a huge locker room impact, they're not there anymore. And yes, you've got Aaron Jones and stuff, but the fact that Matt LaFleur has been able to do this, and I think he said even mid-season, like, he was like, we got to stop talking about this team as being a young team. Like, we don't have excuses. We have expectations, and we expect to perform a certain way. And that kind of felt like this entire team just turned the page. Like, in that moment, it was like, okay. And Rasul Douglas, I think, even said it before he got traded. He was like, we don't consider them a young offense. Like, you're in the NFL. It is what it is. You don't get to it's been like, what, 5 games? You don't get to say, oh, we're still really young. And this kind of felt like the moment for this Packers team to go out there and be like, okay, you can officially stop calling us young. We are just a talented football team, and we are now one of 4 teams left in the NFC.
That's crazy. That's really crazy. Yeah. Yeah. Amazing day for 33. Aaron Jones, 118 yards on the ground. Speaking of the only guy on that side of the ball who's not young. He looks young.
He looks like he's young.
He looks young. Better be back in 2024. Or it is 2024, the 2024 season. I don't know how you can look at this and think he's not. The Packers didn't have him for a lot of the season, and like, you really saw the difference. And now, I mean, it was kind of a joke, right? We were like, oh, keeping his legs fresh for the playoff push. And now it's like, oh, his legs are fresh for the playoff push because 21 for 118 and 3 touchdowns. The dude loves to play in Texas.
El Paso. That is what it is, right? He gets to go home. But yeah, so now 4 straight games over 110 rushing yards, over 20 attempts. And we said, right, like, if Aaron Jones gets 20 touches, historically, mathematically, statistically, that leads to good things. And at the first half, I mean, I know he had the 2 touchdowns, but the first half, it didn't seem like he was making a ton of progress on the ground. Like, there weren't a ton of yards adding up, but it was more like to keep the defense honest. And then the second half, when the Packers were able to open things up and play with a little bit more of a cushion, then you started to really see the chunks. And it just shows you, like, one of the reasons that the offense struggled early in the season, and we kind of said, like, no, wait and see, we can't really truly evaluate the offense without an effective run game, was because they didn't have one, and they were putting up so few yards on the ground. And I think it also just illustrated how impressive Jordan Love's performance was early on in the season, to still be putting up the numbers that he was to the receivers that he was without a guy like Aaron Jones in his backfield.
Yeah. And they didn't really, I mean, they tried out the Emmanuel Wilson thing. I'd prefer if they didn't. It didn't really go that great. I understand wanting a bit of a rotation. Obviously, you don't want Aaron Jones to have what they had in total. Emmanuel Wilson had 8 carries. Patrick Taylor had 3. So you don't want Aaron Jones to have over 30 carries. I do get that. Maggie and Perri, thanks for the super chat. We appreciate that Royce Newman came in for 1 snap and had a penalty. You know, Royce Newman be Royce Newman. I don't know what you want. I will say, Newman. You love a Seinfeld reference. Someone commented earlier about the offensive line, and you must have joined late because I already gave my flowers to the offensive line in this game. They looked fantastic. I mean, obviously Elton had that holding penalty on Micah Parsons. Like, what are you going to do?
He was going to get one, right? Since he didn't
Yeah.
week one. Like,
sometimes you just got to hold Micah. I don't know what are you going to do? They had pressure in Love's lap like all evening. But I really thought the offensive line held up great. And one of our keys to the game, right, was we knew they were going to move Micah inside. We knew he was going to like do his best to push the pocket. So Love couldn't step up into it, especially against Josh Myers. And I really thought the interior played very well. And the antidote to that was a great run game. So the offense imposed their will against this defense.
Yeah, and I mean, I think one of the things that we talked about too on the defensive side of the ball, we kind of said it in the DMs like a little bit during the game, but it just felt like Dak evaded pressure a lot more than we maybe thought that he would. We said like he's not necessarily as mobile as some of the other quarterbacks that the Packers have seen this season, and he did, make some plays with his legs, but it felt like Rashawn was so close all game, and they were, I mean, like Lucas Van Ness got his, Preston Smith got his to kind of seal the game, but yeah, it was nice to see them kind of bring some pressure.
Yeah. Green Draco, thank you for the super chat. The Packers led by as many as 32. Yeah. I think I'm sure the Cowboys were trying to mount a comeback, although I still felt like it was garbage time. I mean, when you're down 16 and the opposing team is 48, I think you need a little bit of magic at that point to mount a comeback. And they just looked like they were done. Dak obviously was trying to do his best to get the ball to his playmakers, and CeeDee Lamb finally came on in the second half, but it felt a little too late.
And I think you're in like a really precarious situation too, not only as Joe Barry, but as the players, where you start to look ahead a little bit, right? And you're up by 30 points and you're like, hey, we have a game next week. And Isaiah McDuffie goes down and Jair Alexander goes down. And you start to think maybe a little bit about injuries. And I'm not saying that's an excuse, because had the Cowboys come back, obviously that would have been a much bigger issue. But I do think there's something to be said about Joe maybe saying like, hey, we're going to, like, you noticed he played a little bit more off, right? He was playing some really good man early in the first half. And then the second half came late in the game and he started to play a little bit softer, and a lot more prevent came out.
Look, at that point, I think that's fine. Like, playing
right. No, I'm just saying like that's why they were able to come back.
Yeah. I think at that point it felt like garbage time. So I think it's okay. If you're still not playing like press man and rushing 5, I mean, you can if you want to keep the pedal to the metal, but they got plenty of stops and they did what they needed to, and it never felt, like I said, I don't think Green Bay's win probability ever was lower than 99%, even into the fourth quarter where they had to bring back Jordan Love, et cetera, and they wanted their starters back in. It was not close.
I don't want to like put you on the spot on our live, but does the playoff, the victory change anything, do you think, about Joe Barry? Like, does he like maybe sneak into the conversation of like, hey, look how my defense has been the last couple weeks. I got us in. Like, no, you think it's still a mutual parting of ways?
I really cannot, like, I don't know, because if they like make a Super Bowl push, then yeah, I mean, sure. If they go into San Francisco next week and win, we might be having a different conversation. Yeah.
All the comments, I'm not saying he should come back. I'm just saying, like, do you think the Packers coaching staff and Matt LaFleur will be like, I don't know, that was pretty good,
right now for me, no, I don't think so.
No, I agree.
If they go into San Francisco next week and get their ass whooped, no, nothing's changed.
200 rushing yards.
Yeah, like if this is what we're used to seeing, if the pumpkin, your analogy, if it turns to midnight and the carriage turns back into a pumpkin, we're moving on. Like I said, if he decides to coach all of a sudden a mighty defense and the Packers somehow find their way into a Super Bowl, bring him back for another year, like whatever.
Bring that pumpkin back.
Bring that pumpkin back. Thank you. Arnaldo for the super chat. How do you disguise a game like this so the 49ers can maybe underestimate the Packers? I think they are underestimating the Packers. I think everyone still is. They're probably looking at like, oh, the Cowboys in the playoffs. Everyone's saying, you even saw it in the post game. You watch the post game show and everyone's talking about the Cowboys had a meltdown. What are they going to do? Jerry Jones, they're going to fire Mike McCarthy. Nobody's taking the Packers seriously still, which is fine by me. Underestimate them all you want.
And the expectations are always going to be higher, right? 49ers, if the Packers go into San Fran and even play a close game, the expectation is still that the 49ers should win this game, right? Like, regardless, the Packers could make the Super Bowl and the narrative would still be that they're playing with house money. Like, people can respect what they're doing as a franchise and as a young team, but the expectation will never be that they'll go into any environment and actually win the game. So the 49ers offense is really good. Statistically, the Cowboys offense was putting up a couple more points, I guess, in the season. But yeah, there's too many playmakers on the 49ers offense and too many edge rushers on the 49ers defense for the Packers to not be taking this seriously, for the 49ers to not truly, I don't think they'll overlook the Packers and their weapons.
No.
I really don't.
Also, I think like from a coaching perspective, the 49ers are a step above the Cowboys. Like, we love Mike, but Kyle is a much smarter coach. And they're a much, I think, just better coach team on both sides of the ball. So,
do you think Mike McCarthy's gone tomorrow or in a couple
for
days?
sure, because first of all, I don't think he should be. Just putting that out there. I mean, you don't get to 12 wins. Like, this is a very, like, the grass is not always greener on the other side for me, but I think Jerry is rash. And I think Jerry is an emotional owner who's way too involved in his team. And that's probably why they can't win in the playoffs, because Jerry makes emotional, rash decisions and fires good coaches when he shouldn't.
That's
why.
fair.
How do you feel?
No, I mean, I do think that he's probably gone, and I think it is unfortunate. I think that he has value, in the league, but I think that you can also see in big moments where he's been outcoached in the clock management. And there's certain characteristics that I'm not sure he's entirely outgrown, which makes you a little bit concerned potentially about like his longevity. But yeah, I mean, he was the first coach in Dallas history to have 12 straight wins or 12 wins plus in 3 straight seasons. So
yeah. And I mean, I get that like the regular season 12 wins kind of doesn't matter if you're a first round exit. Like I get that. And I don't know. I see it both ways, but it depends who they bring in. Like if they go hire Bill, yeah, sure. Fine.
Yeah.
Okay. That's fine. I saw a few things. It's okay. We don't need to talk about this. We can talk about it in the off season, but I did see a few things about like, are they going to get rid of Dak too? Which I find a really interesting conversation, but we can talk about in the off season. Thank you, Alex, for the super chat. Let's go. Go Pack, go. Go Pack, go. Yeah. This has been such a fun season. All right, we're going to wrap this because Maggie is going to go record Pack a Day, the Pack a Day podcast. So get ready for a recap. Is it all 3 of you tonight?
Yeah, it's all 3 of us tonight. Yep.
Amazing. So you can go listen to that tomorrow. Maggie and I will be recording an actual Pax What She Said episode tomorrow. So this is just bonus. You can get the episode tomorrow when it drops. This is probably top 5 in terms of like my favorite playoff games, simply because the expectations just were so low, and this team looks like they're having so much fun. And this is the beginning. This is just like the beginning of a rise onto San Francisco.
Yeah, and I mean, like, to echo your point, I think that's why it's been so fun is like we're seeing Jordan Love's career evolution right in front of us, and the young offense that we didn't necessarily know. We said like, oh, young tight ends, it takes a couple seasons to acclimate into the NFL, and recency bias I'm sure could be a factor here, but every playoff game with Aaron Rodgers and with all of the pieces, you always wondered, like, there was always kind of a sense of finality to those games. Like, would it be Aaron Rodgers' last game? Would it be so many like vets? Would it be their last game? And you always kind of went into it wondering like what the team would look like the following season if they didn't go all the way. You always like wanted to win for 18, wanted to win for 69, wanted to win for 89 and all the vets in those rooms. So for this Packers team that has their window like not just open, but like slammed open now for so many seasons to come is really fun. It was really special to go into this one like, well, we're all just here as fans to have a good time and then have like the best time. Feels like it's such a good time.
An actual ass whooping kind of time. Dagger in the third quarter by Wayne kind of time.
The best kind of time.
Best kind of time. Well, thank you all for joining us. This was really fun. Maybe some more lives in our future. Maggie and I talked about, we were like, well, let's see how the game goes, but maybe we go live later. We had a feeling. I feel like we had a feeling.
Pretty good.
We felt good. So yes, catch the episode when it drops tomorrow, Monday. Victory Monday, the best Victory Monday, playoff Victory Monday. Also listen to Pack a Day, as you know. If you aren't listening, you should be. Yeah, go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.
On to San Francisco. Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go.